One of America's most important cultural touchstones is Time's Person of the Year. America's long-running and contender for most popular magazine is the sole arbiter of this award, as they started it and have been doing it since 1927. So it has now been going on for over 95 years, and the tradition is intertwined with Time. But come on, let's be real here. No one reads magazines anymore. Time as identity itself seems like an anachronism from all the way back in the 1940s, and they're not exactly a largely unbiased news source, which, they don't have to be, but that leads me to disagree with some of their choices. Now, let's set some groundwork here. The Person of the Year is obviously biased towards an American perspective, which is fine if it's just defined that way, so I'm describing it as the person most important culturally to America that year, and I will be giving leeway for them avoiding nominating controversial people. Once they nominated this guy, and it didn't sit too well. So they've been very cautious about giving the Person of the Year to a controversial person, which is fine. Remember, I'm not exactly passing judgment on these people as, good or bad or heroic or evil, just on their validity to the most important person culturally to the US that year. Furthermore, my knowledge of the cultural norms is unsurprisingly weak from the 20s to the 50s, and also they were still finding their footing with some consistency, so I am starting with the year 1961 and going all the way to 2022. Ignoring all that, there are still many downright bad and sometimes even egregious choices, so here's the 10 worst choices for Time's Person of the Year. Number 10 is the year 1968 with the Apollo 8 crew. The Person of the Year is announced during the December edition, which just happened during the time that Apollo 8 was happening. What was Apollo 8? It was the first time humans left the Earth's gravitational pull for the vacuum of space. They orbited the moon nearly a dozen times and then went back home. It was a very important and successful mission that laid the groundwork for later missions, but it's a bit of a bad choice. First, think about this being just like one step in the many more planned trips to the moon, and then also recognize what also happened that year. Nixon won the election as just the second Republican president since all the way back in 1932. MLK and RFK happened, Vietnam was getting really bad with the Tet Offensive, and also there were massive wide-scope protests in literally every country. May 68 in France, the Prague Spring, Vietnam War protests, the Troubles, and that's just scratching the surface. Number 9 is the year 1988 with The Endangered Earth. Fun fact, did you know the Earth isn't a person? Yeah, this is one of the 2 instances where Time just decided, hey, let's give the Person of the Year to something that's clearly not even a person. Could have easily just gone with George H.W. Bush, the guy that just won the presidency, who is usually without fail given Person of the Year every 4 years, but nope, let's give it to the Earth. Frankly, 1988 isn't even that bad of a year meteorologically or climatologically to be Person of the Year. Sure, there was a bad drought and Hurricane Gilbert, but I'm not exactly sure to what the exchange was, oh boy, this is the year we really gotta do the Earth, but it's not exactly like the Earth isn't really important. Number 8 is the year 1982 with The Computer. Here's the second non-person to win Person of the Year, so yes, there are 7 picks for Person of the Year that are worse than something that isn't even human. Look, I get the Planet of the Year or Machine of the Year, but you can't just change the title for something you've done over 50 years just out of complete nowhere. Yeah, I get computers are important, but you could have easily done Leonid Brezhnev, the guy who was the de facto ruler of the Soviet Union from 1964 to 1982. I never understood why the guy who ruled the Soviets for nearly 40% of the Cold War is just totally forgotten about. Khrushchev did 11, Gorbachev did 6, and Stalin only lived for about 7 to 8 of them, and this guy led the Soviet from the mid-60s all the way to the early 80s, yet he's just a nobody and totally forgotten about. Stalin and Gorbachev each got 2 Person of the Year, and Khrushchev only got 1, but nope, none for Brezhnev. Okay. Now, number 7 is the year 2019 with Greta Thunberg. Yeah. Look, think of her what you will, but a 16-year-old from Sweden that every day talks about global warming is not the Person of the Year. It's not exactly like she invented global warming, or no one believed in global warming until the Swedish girl started shouting about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll believe it, but look, she is better or for worse, just another Gen Z social media influencer. A very popular one at that, maybe similar to, I don't know, Mr. Beast, but I just don't think she's really close to the title of Person Most Important Culturally to America in, 2019. Frankly, it just should have been Trump. In fact, it really should have been Trump from 2016 all the way to 2019, and heck, maybe even 2020 and 2021, but, they don't want to give it to Trump because controversy, which honestly makes a ton of sense. But all they could come up with otherwise are Nancy Pelosi, the Hong Kong protesters, and the whistleblower on the whole Ukraine scandal that happened. But, come on, that was 2019. You could have easily done better than that. So while those 4 were pretty bad, the next 6 are, really just downright terrible. Number 6 is the year 1996 with David Ho. Now you might say, who the heck's David Ho? And you're not alone. Literally everyone was shocked that David Ho won, including himself. Look, David Ho was a great scientist who was if not the pioneer and leader in AIDS research. But no one had really any idea who he was. And AIDS was, a really large cultural object in the 80s, back in like 1981, which was nearly 15 years ago at that time. He's a great guy who did amazing work, but he doesn't even remotely fit the bill as, a widespread and household influencer of culture in America. Could have gone with, I don't know, Bill Clinton, who won the election in '96, or maybe Kofi Annan, who was appointed the Secretary General of the UN just that December. Number 5 is the year 2005 with The Good Samaritans. Yep, the people of the year were the world's richest man, Bill Gates, his wife Melinda, the current half-billionaire, the obnoxious, the irksome, the man hated all around the world, Bono. Yeah, Bono was the Time Person of the Year in 2005, just because he was part of and could have possibly, maybe slightly helped organize a big group of concerts that was already planned without him in preparation for the G8 meeting that year, and also he sang with Paul McCartney to donate money to Africa. Yeah, could have gone with, I don't know, Tony Blair, Pope Benedict XVI, Lance Armstrong, or I don't know, maybe something to do with Hurricane Katrina? This is just a jumbled mess. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. Let's move on to the next one. Number 4 is the year 2006 with you! That's right, you the viewer, right there on that computer or phone or television or 3DS or whatever. Look, as long as you're before midnight Eastern Standard Time on December 25th, 2006, you were Person of the Year. Yeah, this one's a big letdown. Sure, the others weren't the best, but there's the Wii/Nintendo, which, okay, that's not a person. A NASA guy? Barry Bonds? Saddam? Honestly, the more I dive deeper into it, the more I really start to like it, but I just can't get over how stupid you is. Regardless, it's gonna stay at 4, and you actually probably already knew about this one from all like the endless snarky Twitter profiles that went out of style over a decade ago. Number 3 is the year 1969 with Middle Americans. So, what does Middle Americans mean? Well, it can mean Americans in the Midwest and Great Plains, which are both pretty vague and ambiguous terms. It could also be the middle class, centrists, or people living in the suburbs. It's pretty much an empty term that can apply to anyone who doesn't live in a large city. And to whom was the great honor of Person of the Year taken from? Just the first manned mission to the moon. That silly little Apollo 11 team who, they went to the moon. It's maybe the most watched television event in world history, despite happening in the 60s, which was before televisions were ubiquitous. It's not like the Apollo 8 team, who just flew around the moon a year earlier, got the Person of the Year award, and the people who actually went to it in one of the greatest feats in human history didn't. That'd be really bad if that happened. Yeah. And if you thought number 2 was horrible, don't worry, there's somehow the 2 that are worse. Number 2 is the year 1997 with Andrew Grove. So, who the heck is he? He was the CEO of Intel for a while, and also invested the company into making semiconductors and microchips. I mean, he was an influential guy in the development of the electronic age, and what else did he do specifically? Well, Yep, that's it. So, what do we miss out on? Just Princess Diana, who was probably more popular than the Queen herself, and whose death dominated the news cycle for months. Oh, and Ian Wellman and the team who completed the small task of, cloning Dolly the sheep. While albeit there's some disambiguation, it was still a massive accomplishment in the world of science, but no, but a random CEO of Intel gets it because, yeah. Now, number 1, the absolute worst, which I personally suspect some foul play with, it's the year 1991 with Ted Turner. Ted Turner, if you didn't know, founded CNN. He's also extremely rich. It'd be really funny if less than 5 years later, in 1996, Turner Broadcasting merged with Time Warner, and Ted Turner became the largest individual shareholder and vice chairman of the merged company. Oh, and does the name Time Warner sound familiar? It's not like Time Inc. ate and merged with Warner Communications to form the mega conglomerate in 1989. But hey, maybe 99 was just a really dry news year. The Time Man of the Year award comes out on the last December issue, which was December 28th, 1991 that year. Say, was there anything possibly newsworthy going on in late December 1991? Nothing interesting happened just 2 days earlier? Nothing happened on December 26, 1991? Anyways, that's the 10 worst choices for Time's Person of the Year. There were a couple further bad picks that didn't quite make the list, but these 10 are far and away the worst. I actually thought about doing my choices for every year, but that would take way too long and I need to stop taking months to make videos. There will be a lot more videos in the near future, with better graphics and everything, and I hope to be able to stick to a schedule of releasing at least 2 videos a week. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.